Today on the Travel Magazine, join us as we cruise the Danube from Nuremberg to Budapest on board KD Cruise Line's MS Heinrich Heine. The Danube is one of Europe's classic rivers. Hi, I'm Jake de Boer.
And I'm Mieke de Boer, and welcome to this edition of the Travel Magazine.
Join us as we cruise on KD's MS Heinrich Heine along the Danube, a river which has inspired both artists and poets, as well as playing a vital role in Europe's history and culture.
KD was originally formed out of two small shipping companies back in the 1820s, Cologne and Dusseldorf, which is how the K and D comes out of the name. In 1991, they ventured away from the Rhine and began operation on the Elbe River, and in late 1993 began their operation on the Danube.
Bavaria's second largest city has a colorful history that goes back at least to the year 1050. It stood at the crossroads of important trade routes across Europe, and over the years has emerged into a great cultural center.
Well, it's unfortunate, but Nuremberg was destroyed to 90%. The destruction that took place was catastrophic. There are lots of billboards out now showing you the difference between the city before and after. And a man named Schmeissner had the major decision after the war to rebuild Nuremberg. And the question was, should we make it a modern city, as Frankfurt was made?
Yeah.
Or do we retain this medieval character? And of course, they made the decision to retain the medieval character, of course, with the pragmatics involved with traffic and cars at that point. And rebuilt it basically as you see it here.
Nuremberg Castle, very special, very large, and very well preserved. Can you imagine how old some of it is? The Imperial Castle in Nuremberg was one of the most important fortresses in Europe and the political heart of the empire.
Nein, wir waren alleine, Leute. Wir waren alleine.
The Danube Canal is approximately 175 kilometers in length and boasts the highest locks in Germany.
Okay, ladies.
When the captain is in need of moving the wheelhouse where he is located, usually that is because they're going into a lock or they're passing under a bridge. The astonishment from passengers looking at this, seeing the entire part of the ship being dropped into the ship itself, being dropped into the superstructure. There's a lot of wide eyes, a lot of amazed people who aren't imagining that the vessel that they're sailing on is perhaps as sophisticated as it quickly becomes apparent that in fact it is. We move out of Nuremberg and towards Wiedenberg. When we reach there, you're able to take a short trip to a castle called the Rosenberg. And at the Rosenberg is one of the only remaining falconries in all of Germany. It's a fascinating look at the handling of large and small birds, by very professional handlers of these birds, and passengers are absolutely fascinated at the speed and the trajectory of the falcons as they're flying around in the demonstration of what they're doing. As the ship arrives in Kelheim, Kelheim is a small town, and from Kelheim, we actually can take a short sightseeing tour to the Liberation Hall.
Liberation Hall was built by the Bavarian king Ludwig I. It was erected as a monument in honor of those who fought in the liberation wars from 1813 to 1815.
Regensburg is a great medieval town.
Jake, you know that we are now walking in the oldest medieval city in the whole of Germany.
That's right.
Regensburg is a great medieval town. You'll find as you walk from the ship into the town square that the town square itself was the location of many of the jousting contests for the knights, and they were even known to have executed a few people in the town square. It's a beautiful city, however, that is also well known for having the oldest bridge in all of Germany.
It is a fully preserved medieval city. And you can imagine what a task the municipality has to maintain, to preserve these old houses as visible witnesses of history.
The floating hotel concept is something that KD prides itself on. You're going to have a different view every day outside your hotel window. We're going to take you from point A to point B. The rooms, indeed the cabins, are all identical in size, very comfortable, and they all have windows that are facing outside. There's no inside cabins whatsoever. Downstairs, you're going to find the forward lounge. Piano player is always aboard ship to entertain during evening hours. There is a library on board, a reading room, really, with magazines and newspapers and books in various languages. On the Heinrich Heine, there's an indoor swimming pool and fitness center. The pool is certainly large enough to indeed swim a little bit, and the exercise bikes keep people in shape to work off some of the wonderful food that we're having. The dining room indeed serves beautiful selection of international cuisine, served by a very capable staff. As passengers are arriving, at Passau, you already have the idea that it's going to be something special. One of the stops, of course, that you must make is at St. Stephen's Dome.
In the Cathedral of Passau, we have the biggest church organ of the world. And it's unbelievable, but it has 17,774 pipes. So you can imagine how big it is. And of course, the sound is just famous.
Back with more of Katie's River Cruise on the Danube just after this, so stay with us. Isn't this beautiful to cruise on this river? Tell me, how do you like the difference between ocean cruising?
Well, you know, I find it difficult to compare because ocean cruising is really very much what you call a passive holiday. You lie out on the deck, you can participate in sports, and you get off at 3 or 4 islands. But here, every night, you're in another beautiful small city where you can go shopping, wander around. If you don't want to eat on the ship, you can go out for dinner. You're not on the ship as much.
We just may have somebody special in the house. It's a musician and he's from Beieren.
Yeah.
And he makes this folk music.
Yes.
And well, it's always having a lot of fun. I mean, everybody's dancing.
As we are now leaving Germany and heading into our next country, we're about to arrive in the city of Linz. It is the third largest city in all of Austria, and a short walk from the ship will take you to the magnificent town square. You can shop, or you can just sit down and enjoy a nice glass of wine. Or you are now in Austria, so there's that opportunity to sample some of the Austrian desserts that are very bountiful in this particular town square.
The leisurely pace of river cruising offers you the opportunity to write postcards, catch up on world events, read up on your next port of call, or simply sit back and relax and enjoy the ever-changing scenery.
In Melk, we pull up to a very small town, and the main attraction in Melk, of course, is its Baroque Abbey. It's a beautiful Benedictine monastery, and it's the home of a library which is housing one of the largest and oldest book collections in all of Germany.
The whole Baroque is an incredibly joyous period. It's a celebration. It's the end of the Turkish invasions in Austria. It's the end of the Counter-Reformation. It's taking all the wealth that's been stored up in this time and showing it off. And just a glorious display, trying really to show this to everyone coming here, that God is this big, God is this powerful and this beautiful. Everywhere you are in the town, no matter where you are, you see the monastery. And It's just gorgeous.
So Jake, how do you find this floating hotel on the Danube?
You know, the Danube has always been for me a very romantic river. And when you stop in places like Passau, Vienna, you think of, oh my goodness, here to be.
Smoked salmon and
that
all
is
the
very
green
nice.
salads.
Thank you.
Well, I think we should make a toast.
Okay, and now let's toast our cruise on the Danube with KD on the Heinrich Heine.
As you're approaching the small town of Dürnstein, you'll find immediately the first thing that hits you is that the ship is headed directly for this magnificent pastel blue church, which is sitting only a few yards away from where your ship actually will be docking.
In Austria, you will find that all the churches and official buildings are yellow, the color of the Austrian church. The church in Dürnstein here does not belong to the Archbishop in Vienna, it belongs to Bavaria. The colors of Bavaria are blue, and therefore this church, as the only church in Austria, has a blue steeple.
It's a town that really is a must for a walking tour, to stroll through its quaint cobblestone streets. You'll also see the ruins of the castle, and this is the castle where King Richard the Lionhearted was imprisoned on his return from the Third Crusade.
We'll be back with more of our cruise on the Danube right after this, so stay with us.
As we head into the capital of Austria, Vienna, you now can have a great appreciation as the ship pulls in to what a magnificent city it is that you're about to visit. If it's the first time, you're in for a great treat. It surely is one of the great cities in all of the world.
Coffee houses have a long tradition in Vienna, more than 300 years. It was when the Turks have been before Vienna and then had to flee because they had been defeated. They left the coffee beans, and the legend says that was the beginning of the coffee houses in Vienna.
You know, Jake,
Mieke.
Vienna is Johann Strauss. You know, he was born here, he lived here, he died here, and you know, the music is all, I think, captured in the air because he composed and wrote the Blue Danube. And you know, everybody knows the Blue Danube.
Captain's dinner, the people were welcomed by the captain and the crew at the entrance of the restaurant with a glass of champagne. And then the people go in the restaurant, take a seat. The captain has a speech to the tourists about the trip, about the ship, and then it is a captain's dinner.
I wish you a very nice evening. Thank you.
The idea of meeting people from other nations is something that appeals to many of our passengers. And at the captain's dinner, they sort of can bring this all together. And you do develop this very pleasant camaraderie between passengers that Most passengers come away with talking about it and saying, well, one of the most enjoyable aspects of the trip were the people who I met from France or from England or from wherever, and that's a nice way to travel, I think.
You were born on a river ship. You're now the captain of a river ship. Will you get married on a river ship one day?
Yes, hopefully.
And now all our viewers know that you're not married. Can you imagine the mail that's going to come?
A lot, I hope a lot.
One of the great cities of the world also is Budapest. And your ship is going to take you directly into the city.
Buda and Pest was united 100 years ago. Buda, as I have mentioned, is the residential part of the town. You have more trees, more parks, more greens, but this is the castle district which represents Buda. The castle district dates back centuries and centuries. The first time when the royal court was moved to Buda was in the 13th century after the Tatar invasion. There was already a palace on the place of this, but that got ruined, and year by year it was built and new levels were built and new wings of the palace have been built. So basically it was finished in the last century. You can see that we have bridges, 7 bridges, which are keeping the connection between the two parts, but still you can recognize a kind of separation between, like, Buda is much more the residential part, Pest is for commerce and studies and busier.
You have a magnificent parliament building along the Danube.
That's true. It's a magnificent and a very expensive building. That was built in last century, the mid and the end of the last century. And the price to build that building was the same as the price to build a small town for 50,000 people. So it looks fabulous, but it had a price.
Well, that's it for this edition of the Travel Magazine. I hope you've enjoyed our cruise along the Danube as much as we have. For the Travel Magazine, I'm Jake de Boer.
And I am Mieke de Boer, and join us again as we travel around the world.